Mr.
Welcome to On Second Thought. C.P.S. Criminals in office. I'm William Wagener, doing this show for my 13th year. And what you just saw...
When you can't protect a life that is so clearly at risk, and then at the same time, you come in and you snatch a child out of the arms of a loving mother, right here in our area with Anna Nikolaev and her husband Alex.
Was a protest before C.P.S. got their butts rammed up in committee room 444 in the Sacramento State Capitol.
With our family, with our baby. My name is Anna Nikolaev, I'm sorry. And my son who I was holding was the son who C.P.S. took away out of my arms. He had fever. I'm just gonna start from the beginning. He had fever one night and I did not know what to do. As a mother, you always learn. It's our first child. I told my husband, let's go to the emergency room. We went to the emergency room. They took his temperature. They've been telling us.
Capital of California, in the Capitol building.
He was fine, no fever, nothing. And he told them, in any emergency cases, call back or come back to the emergency. And we said, okay. Next day, 24 hours later, I get the phone call from C.P.S. On my phone, they're asking me where I am. I told
in room 444. We'll have footage for that next week. We got it all on tape. In that meeting room, it was packed. Got that on tape. And out in the hallway, there was 100 non-custodial moms, mostly non-custodial moms, and a few dads saying, audit C.P.S. statewide. We want to know how many children are murdered under the control of C.P.S. C.P.S. takes the kids, gives them to pedophiles, gives them to dangerous foster parents, dangerous adopting parents, and these kids die. In one county alone, this one person spoke up and gave a number. I think it was 562 dead children in one California county in 1 year. And that was just one county. These kinds of information are kept secret from us. They all say, oh, privacy, children's rights. We have a right to keep the children's records private, even after they kill them. Whether the foster family killed them. Do you remember the kids found howling like dogs? And the 15-year-old girl weighed like 40 pounds. And she was age 15 because they'd been chained up in the back in a shed out in Riverside or San Bernardino County. That was, I don't know, 12, 15, maybe 20 years ago. It was horrible. And the only reason they caught them was because the neighbors called animal control and said, hey, there are dogs howling and they must be hurting these dogs. So animal control came. The foster parents were out shopping for new fancy clothes where they lived in their fancy home while in a 10 by 12 tin shack in sweltering heat. There was 3 or 4 kids. I think one was as young as 8 years old and almost died from dehydration. The older ones couldn't really speak. So they howled and barked like dogs. We're talking human children in California, chained in a shed. And no C.P.S. worker lost their job. The one C.P.S. worker that should have been hauled on the count because she was falsifying documents that she visited the children and everything was fine. And really she was working another job while she was getting paid to be a C.P.S. worker. So she falsified papers and had not checked on these children for years. What she'd do is she'd make a phone call. Hi, how are the kids doing? Everything fine? Okay, good. Fill it out. I visited the home. The children are fine, blah, blah, blah. And they were being chained like dogs. 500 plus children in one county dead under control of C.P.S. We have rumors, because everything is secret in Santa Barbara County, that over 12 children have either disappeared in the system in Santa Barbara or died in the system in California. But we can't find out because it's all secret. What if you are one of those parents that had your child snatched, I say kidnapped, under color of law, with no hearing, no trial by jury, no warning? They just show up, let us in, we're cops and we're C.P.S. here and we're taking your kid. That's why in the beginning that I showed you the actual footage. How did that Anna Nikolaev get that footage? She set her camera taping when she saw the cops knock her husband Alex to the ground. She just set it on a shelf and taped it, and the cops came in looking for the baby, and you could see in the words, we'll play it later again so you can see that later in the show before we go out. The cops say, don't resist, we're going to take your baby, and don't fight us, don't resist, we're going to take your baby. They didn't say, we have a warrant, it's signed by a judge, a jury has ruled you're unfit parents, because they weren't unfit parents. Now here's the rub. You saw that Dr. Florian Curia speaking right after candidate for governor Tim Donnelly spoke. Now this is the first time in 20 years with millions of parents and children affected in this state, millions affected, millions hurt by C.P.S. This is the first time I have ever witnessed a statewide or even an assembly candidate stand up for the parents' right to have a trial by jury before they grab your children and then force you to sign documents or you can't see your kid. If you don't sign this document giving us legal control of your child, we won't even let you visit your kid even though they're crying and screaming and you can hear them in the back room, Mommy, Mommy, Daddy, Daddy, help me. No, you can't see your kid till you sign these documents. This is extortion. Then they falsified documents saying, we found the children filthy in a filthy house and starving and blah, blah, blah. And then they will down-dress the kids before they go to the hearing and say, this is how we found them, Judge. This happens routinely. These C.P.S. workers need to be indicted. Now, I'll show you the footage next week of the hearing. And you'll see the same pretty blonde, blue-eyed mom with her husband, Alex, and Tim Donnelly sitting in room 444 while the Joint Legislative Audit Committee heard her tell her horrifying story. But it's not the first one. This has been happening for 20 years under the disguise of child protective services. Oh, we're the social workers and we protect children from abusive parents. They do drugs, they smoke pot, they get drunk, they don't take care of the children. That's true maybe 1% or less of the time. And even in those cases, the children are usually better off with the parents than being raped and murdered by a pedophile foster mom or foster father. If you don't believe how evil this is, you need to go to my YouTube channel and put in Logan Marr, State of Maine, dead. Put that in and see the little girl that was duct taped to death by a C.P.S. ex-worker because she knew all the C.P.S. workers. She just left that job. And they wouldn't let grandma have the child, so they gave it to an ex-C.P.S. worker who duct taped the little Logan Marr to death. Well, we just had June 5th, just days ago, is some accountability. C.P.S. senior workers were sitting in that hearing room watching what was going down, thinking, oh my God, they got us. We're going to get our butts reamed. We better start funding the candidates who will stop our butt from being reamed out as it so well deserves to be. And then you saw a line, a continuous line. The hallway was packed. I had to nudge and say, excuse me, can I get past you, please? Can I get... just to get in the hearing room. And Channel 10 was covering it. Fox News was covering, although Fox didn't give it much airtime, if any. But Channel 10 in Sacramento did. I spent 15 hours coming and going to be there on short notice, thanks to Michael Warnken, who will be with us here in the show in a little bit. This is a valid issue, and I am telling you the truth. The Russian embassy got involved because Anna Nikolaev and her husband Alex were Russian immigrants. And when C.P.S. grabbed their child with no trial, no hearing for the crime, when they said, your baby's got a little hole in their heart and we're going to do surgery on it, they said, excuse me, you're going to take my little 3 or 4 month old baby and subject it to surgery? We want to get a second opinion. So they left the Sutter Hospital and they went to Kaiser Permanente in Sacramento. And they got a second opinion. And they said, this is not as crucial as you think it is, and your child is pretty healthy. Eventually, they said, you know, this hole is not closing up, and they did do the surgery. But they wanted a second opinion. Before they could do the surgery in a different hospital where they trusted the hospital staff, C.P.S. came. They came one day, the cops came one day, looked at the baby, said, baby's fine, it's being well cared, the house is clean, the parents got an immaculate house, everything's fine, they left. Then C.P.S. sent their false paperwork signed without penalty of perjury. And this is what the C.P.S. criminals often do. They fill out the paperwork, they don't say, and I swear to this under penalty of perjury that every word I put in here is the God's gospel truth. They never do that. And that's why when the parents go into that closed family courtroom, I call it a dungeon, star chamber proceeding, because the public is not allowed. But C.P.S. can have lawyers and C.P.S. wannabes that are being trained to be kidnappers. They can have 10 or 12 people in there. But the parent is only allowed one relative, and only if they ask for it in advance. Then it's optional to the judge. So there's no witnesses as to the lies and the crimes of the C.P.S. workers. My only disappointment in watching 100 or so people who've been abused by C.P.S. step up and say, I'm so-and-so and I support the full audit statewide of C.P.S. 100 people stood up. Then the committee, especially that Hannah Beth Jackson, she said, well, we ought to look for the places where C.P.S. does a good job and they do it right, so we know how to do it right. These people have been operating with no accountability for more than 20 years. They take people that dropped out of high school and give them the power to kidnap kids, even if they never had a child of their own. This is insanity. Insanity on steroids and crack cocaine. Insanity on crack cocaine. That's what these C.P.S. workers are like. They're like Nazi stormtroopers. They think they're above the law. Well, you may remember me talking about SBX 211, where they went retroactively and changed the law retroactively. Once they did that and got away with legalizing bribing judges for the LA 400 dirty ones that got caught by Richard Fine, I said, okay, there's no reason why we can't retroactively go back even beyond the statute of limitations and even grab the C.P.S. workers that are retired and collecting their pensions, make their pensions forfeit. It goes to the victims of their abuse, the parents that lost their children wrongfully because of forged, faked, and fabricated evidence, just like we saw in the Michael Jackson trial. You know, the Michael Jackson trial, you know, this guy behind me. By the way, we're going to show you this banner. We got this marvelous Michael Jackson banner prepared by some marvelous Jackson fans in Los Angeles. And it's so large we can't even get the whole thing on the set here, but we'll do a sweeping view of it here. There's Michael on the left end, and we're going to sweep across and show you more later. And why is this relevant to the Jackson family? Because allegedly she slashed her arm